Hello, everyone, wherever you're listening from and joining from. My name is Tolushe Dove Francis. And right here today, I have Lindsey Acton. Did I get that correctly?
You did. Thank you.
Great. So this particular episode is trans-border. I'm currently in my studio in Nigeria, Lagos, Nigeria precisely. And Lindsey is joining me from the United States. Am I correct?
That's right, yep.
So, Lindsey is the author of Throwing Rocks. She is an educator, a teacher. She's been doing this for over 15 years, and she has come from that angle of her experience growing up and working with people. And that led her to writing our most recent book titled Throwing Rocks. But before we dive into the conversation, I'm going to ask Lindsey to please tell us a little bit about herself. I know that you have quite a story. So Lindsey, can you do us the honors of telling us about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm coming to you from the United States. We live in Indiana, central Indiana is the state that we're in, so right in the middle of the Midwest. I have been an educator for 15 years. I teach high school English and have been doing that my entire career. I'm married to John, who's to my left, making sure we don't have problems. And then we have two sons. Jack is 12 and Andrew's 5. And we live here in, like I said, central Indiana, where we're both actually educators. So my husband is a school superintendent and I am an English teacher. So it's kind of what we do. So that's kind of us.
Great. Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to ask, what influenced your journey or your decision to become an educator?
Oh, gosh. So a long time ago, when I was in 3rd grade, I had a teacher tell me that she thought I could be a writer someday. And, I think that speaks to the impact that a teacher can have on a child, and that stayed with me for a really long time. And so when I was growing up and when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I always felt like a pull toward my loves, which are reading books and writing. And I didn't really know how to make that into a translatable career until I figured out that I really like kids. I really like teenagers. And I like their passion, and I like their fearlessness, and just the raw kind of nature of who they are is so fun to be around. And so, and I think I'm pretty good with them, and it has really translated into sharing a lot of my loves with them in ways that I never really thought that I would. But when I started teaching, I knew that I had found what I was probably supposed to do. So that's always a good thing too.
And you've been doing this for about 15 years, you said?
Yep. This is my 15th year in the classroom. Yep. Thank you.
I clap for you because it's not easy being an educator. I mean, people pass through you and they go, and some never remember you, right? But you have the opportunity.
Uh-oh. It's frozen. No. We're good.
Great. So I was saying that it means that for 15 years, different students have passed through you, and some you may not even meet again. And so year in, year out, you meet new sets of people, you encounter different sets of people. That's such a beautiful thing to do. And I do commend you because, I mean, I've had reasons to teach people, and I know how tough of a work it is. But when it's something you enjoy, right, you're able to do that, and then you're able to move on with it. Now, my question is, what influenced the title of your new book, Throwing Rocks?
Oh, thank you for asking that. So the book looks like this. I want to make sure that everybody sees it because I love it, and I designed the cover myself and was really proud of what
Wow.
work wise. But the book came from a story that was a struggle that I went through as a first year teacher, where I experienced some trauma at the hands of one of my students. And we get a little bit into that in a little while if you want to. But it led me to a therapist's chair. And the reason that I was seeing the therapist was because I experienced what you call compounding trauma, when you have multiple traumatic events that pile on top of one another.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had that over the course of about 5 years. And finally, 4 years after my traumatic event occurred, I sought some professional help for my trauma. And so my therapist was awesome. She is actually who the book is dedicated to. Her name is Trish, or was Trish. And she gave me homework assignments. She thought that was really clever. So my homework assignment was, she felt that I had a lot of anger and unresolved, like just frustration with what had occurred. And she said, we can't go any further in the therapeutic process until you get some of this anger out. And
Yeah.
I'm not a yeller, and I'm not someone who has like a strong temper or anything like that. And so I was running on a treadmill and just running and running and running and running and getting nowhere in my head and nowhere with my body. And, you know, it was just a really frustrating time. And she said, I think you need to take a bucket and fill it up with rocks. And I want you to find a friend who has like a dock or a lake or something like that. And I want you to take those rocks and I want you to throw them as hard as you can. And she said, I
Wow.
want you to really just feel that anger coming out of your body. And so my friend, my very dear friend, and he was my mentor my first year of teaching. He was a dear friend. He passed away in July, but he
Oh.
allowed me to use his dock. And so I sat there and I dangled my feet over the edge, and I just started whipping those rocks and into the pond, and I just threw them as hard as I could. And by the end of it, I was sobbing, I was crying. I had, I had dirt all over me. I had snot running out of I was just a mess. And like every fiber of the anger just exited my body. And I felt it happen. It was really cathartic. And it was really cool. So when I designed the cover of the book, I actually went back to the dock where I threw the rocks and recreated the bucket and sat it there. And this is the water I threw them into. And so it was a very full circle moment to be able to return there and feel those feelings again.
Yeah.
You know, and to say, I'm here, but I'm here at a place of peace this time, and not at a place where I was just so angry, which is what was happening.
Wow. Wow. That's some journey right there. I can only imagine. I mean, because I work as a therapist, I can only imagine what your therapist asked you to do was very practical, right? You cannot move forward if you do not deal with the things that are bothering you internally. It would just be a waste of effort and a waste of time. So it's always important that we let go of those things that are like rocks. Actually, they're actually like rocks, right, within us, and we just need to let them out in pebbles, in little quantities, one after the other, so that we're able to even receive new things, we're able to receive new ideas, we're able to chart a new course, and be able to see the new path that we need to follow through. So I must commend that you went on that journey. Would you say, are you able to think back and tell yourself what the worst thing that could have happened if you didn't talk to your therapist?
Oh, I was so anti-therapy. I have to tell you, I was like, And now I think everyone should go to therapy, and I would go every single day if I could, right? Like I have completely converted into a believer in what happens in your mental health and what you need to do for yourself to take care of your body. And I was wasting away into nothing. You know, I'm about 5'6", and I was down to 118 pounds. So I had lost about 28 pounds that I didn't lose. And I was just eating like I could only eat chocolate cake. And I, for whatever reason, nothing else sounded good. I just think I would have wasted away, you know, into nothing. I mean, I think I would have been at a certain point, I would have had to have been hospitalized at the very minimum, you know, because I would have been, you know, you just grind things down to the metal. You before you handle them, and that's so unhealthy. And I don't know that I understood how unhealthy my mind really was at that time. But Trish was my therapist, like I said, and she really, she was so non-judgmental. She was so kind. She was so safe for me, and she gave me the opportunity to really examine these traumas that I had experienced, particularly the one that I write about in the book, and say, you know, this is not normal. Like what you went through isn't normal, and it's okay to feel that this was a big, terrible, awful thing. It was. And so it was just the safety of that, and I hadn't felt safe in such a long time. Because when you're uncomfortable in every part of your life, you have very primal, primitive, rear brain survival instincts that kick in. And that's what I was living on. And it was a pretty long time before I felt safe again. But once I did, it was so transformative, and it was such a tremendous opportunity to like reclaim my own self, you know.
Interesting. Now,
Yes.
So I'm going to ask you this very this question, and the question is: right now or today, are there times that you remember the experience that led you on that journey? I mean, the experience with the students who made you feel bad, and you know, have that kind of experience. Are there times or moments when you remember and you still feel some form of pain or sadness or tears in your eyes?
Yeah, you know, yeah, there are. And I think that's normal, but I will never, it is very interesting to feel pain and gratitude simultaneously. I think that's a really interesting combination of feelings. And I do that. You know, Kevin was a really he's a really interesting kid, and he really struggled, I think, with his own mental health. And I think that he, you know, like all human beings, we're doing the best that we can. But he was, you know, he was 17, and he was really struggling, and he made some really bad choices, and he did some things that caused me such tremendous pain and trauma. But he also gave me this story to use to help other people, and to talk about, hey, you know, teachers experience trauma all of the time, and teachers go through these traumatic experiences, and they are just kind of expected to be back in the classroom doing their thing, without a lot of assistance, without a lot of help. And you know, Kevin died by suicide on a Friday, and I was back in the classroom on Monday. And that's what the expectation is. And so I always, every single school year when I start again, I think about Kevin, and I say a prayer for him, that his soul is at rest and he found the peace in the next life that he didn't have in this one. and that I'll use who I became as a result of that so that I don't ever experience that again, and that no kid ever has to feel that way again. And that's always been the goal, right? That's always been the goal. It's just that it took me such a long time to get to where I could say it out loud.
Yeah, I mean that's understandable. Sometimes it takes so long for us to be able to come to that point where we can clearly say, you know what, I've had this experience, this has happened to me, and these are the lessons that I'm able to pick from this experience. And I mean, it's normal. The most important thing is that we begin the healing journey. The most important thing is that we decide that, look, I want to heal. I want to get back on my feet and get going. So your book, right?
Yes.
What are the key lessons that you want people to pick from this book as they pick them up from the bookshelf or make the order on your website? What are the key lessons that you want them to pick from this book?
I think that the biggest thing is that when you're vulnerable and when you are brave, you can do beautiful, amazing things. And I think that teachers, especially, I mean, all human beings, right? We struggle with vulnerability, and we struggle with seeing that as weakness versus seeing that as strength. And when you can let people see you, you know, especially as a teacher, right? When I let my students see me as a human being, who thinks and feels and believes things, and who has a family, and who is someone's mother, when they see that, then they will let me see who they are. And when those things come together, when you have a place where everybody is being seen in the way that they're meant to be seen, you can do incredible, beautiful, amazing things. And I mean, there are great teachers out there who are never given the opportunity to either feel like they can show students who they are, or feel like they can heal from the things that have happened to them. And I just think that's tremendously sad. So what I want people to understand is that teachers need the support and the love and the lifting up, just like kids do. You know, we have guidance counselors and things like that, but we need something for adults. And I don't know who pays for that, you know, but when I sat down and started writing, the thing that I wanted people to hear was, it is going to hurt. It is going to be painful. It is going to break your heart, but you have to do it anyway. You have to get up every day, show up for these people. And while we're giving these pieces of our souls away and these pieces of our humanity away, loving on other people's babies, there has to be something that we can say to our teachers, this is for you, so you can gain these pieces of your humanity back, you know. And that's kind of where I ended up. And I don't know if I knew that was the journey, but it's where we ended up. And I think that talking about, I mean, Kevin's story, the story of what happened with Kevin is important, but it is nowhere near as important as the support of these human beings who are pouring into our children every day. And we're in this, you know, we're in this global pandemic, and teachers are experiencing trauma after trauma right now, and they might not even, you know, they might not even know it has a name, and that's hard and scary. So when I wrote this, I didn't think I would end it in the middle of a pandemic, but I ended it in April, and I was sitting at my desk, and we were on like lockdown. We couldn't really leave our homes. And I thought, you know, there's going to be some teachers who really struggle with leaving our classrooms on a Thursday and then not going back to them. That is trauma. And I think it's really important that people understand that.
Wow, that's awesome. You've written a book that is going to help current teachers, new teachers, to understand the challenges that they might experience or face in the classroom, and how to handle, deal with it, or manage such experiences, as well as coping through or going through whatever experience they have, understanding that it's not the end of life. These students, these children still need to hear from them. So I believe strongly that your book is going to bring healing, right, to people, and they're going to understand that perhaps some of them are having such experience, or experiences, and they're asking themselves, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done with this. This child is rude. This is unfair, But your story is going to point the light to what path they need to take and what direction that they need to engage. And that's something that we all need. It's not easy to be vulnerable. It's not easy to throw ourselves in the faces of people and tell them our story. It's very, very difficult because nobody wants to be the specimen or the lab rat, as it were, and you don't want people talking about you, So you just want to remain in your corner, in your angle, and just watch as things unfold. Or you say things like, "Well, I've done mine. Let others do theirs as well. I mean, this is where I am, and all that." So that's excellent. So would you say, my final question, that mental health is something every teacher should pay attention to?
Oh, yes. And it's, I like I said before, I was so, when I tell this story in the book, that when I met my therapist for the first time, I refused to sit on her couch because that's too much like therapy. And she said, "You are aware that you're at therapy, right?" And I I just laugh at her and I'd be like, "You're at therapy, not me." But she would say to me that my cat has arrived, if you can hear him. She would say to me that,
"Oh, okay, that's fine."
Yeah, that's the cat. But she would say, you need to feel like you can talk, and you need to feel like you can open up and stuff like that. And so it took a really long time to get there. But my gosh, if teachers aren't taking care of themselves, and I'm talking about more than just a glass of wine and a bubble bath, those things are helpful, but those are not mental health solutions, at least not long-term solutions. And I think we need to really support our professionals, our educators, and say, "Are you okay?" Nobody asks that question. Nobody ever asked me if I was all right.
Yeah.
And the answer was so frequently no. And it's really sad. And I think that it's important that we realize that teachers are not robots, and that they're people who have feelings and hearts, and that those feelings can get hurt and those hearts can get broken.
Absolutely. Teachers are not robots. Humans are not robots. Veterans are not robots. They've got emotions and they've got feelings, and we need to actually try to check on them to be sure that they're doing perfectly okay. So now, 2 more questions before we end this. First is, where can they get this book?
You can get it, so I'll show it to you again so you know exactly what it looks like. My website is www.lindseyactonstories, all one word.com. It can be ordered on Amazon, but the preferred method is the website. There you'll find some content about teacher trauma. You'll find some more links to events, to some interviews that we're doing, and some more just resources for people. And we're building that bank of resources daily. So that website is a really good hub of information. But again, it's called Throwing Rocks. And again, the web address is www.lindseyactonstories.com.
LindseyActonstories.com. I'm going to put that in the description. Now, I'm grateful that I'm able to listen to you, because I've had reasons to teach for a while. And so in my country, there's what we call the National Youth Service Corps, which is mandatory at the end of your post-secondary school, right? You're expected to serve the government for 1 year. And I had some funny experiences teaching during that period, and it really opened my eyes to a whole lot. And, I kept asking myself, what if I was to do this as a career? And it gave me every reason to respect teachers, to respect educators, to respect instructors, because you can't control the feelings of students, right? And sometimes they can say things that don't, in quote, make sense, right? And they just want to get away with it. So thank you very much for sharing your story. Thank you for writing this book. I'm beyond convinced that it's going to help a whole lot of teachers and even non-teachers, because we don't live in isolation. We don't live in an island. We are social beings, and so we have reasons to interact with people. You never can tell if you have to make a presentation somewhere to people. That's a form of teaching.
Yes.
Right. As long as you have to gather people, and instill knowledge into them, that's a form of teaching. What final word do you have for our listeners?
I think the most important thing I can say to you is that you've got to be able to allow people to see you, because when you can build relationships with other people based on who you really, really are, when the walls come down and the trust goes up, that's where beautiful, wonderful things happen. So allow yourself to be vulnerable, allow yourself to be brave. And even when it hurts, and even when it feels like it's the most uncomfortable thing you've ever done, which this feels really uncomfortable for me all the time. But even when it feels that way, you have to keep doing it, because people need your story. People need your heart. People need your light. And that's what you do.
Thank you very much. I do agree with you. People need your light. People need your story. Stories change narratives. Stories bring healing, and stories settle fields. Thank you very much, Lindsey, for doing this. Thank you for joining me on this particular episode. It's been a great honor and pleasure having you with me.
Thank you. It's been really nice to be here. I appreciate your time so much.
Thank you.